float or hand it up to a skiff that will pick it up. The very first great white shark I saw did not look like this. You know, I expected them to be like this because that's all we see. When we see sharks, and also when we hear the word Jaws, that's what we think, you know. There's a shark, they always have their mouth wide open, their teeth are extended, and they're always looking to kill something. So I thought if I ever get to see one of these guys, I never get to talk about it. So the very first shark I saw looked a heck of a lot more like that. Now, obviously, it wasn't this shark because at the time I didn't have a camera with me. I was actually in about 30 feet of water, just watching some divers that were looking at a wall and looking at all little stuff, and I see the shadow and turn around and see this great white shark. And surprisingly, my heart rate did not go up to 220. However, I did lose my scuba regulator because my jaw dropped. I was literally like, that's a white shark. And then it just swam off, turned around, and came right by me again. And, you know, here I am. It obviously did not eat me. So when they're swimming around, most of the time they look like this. Okay, their mouth is not wide open. Their teeth are not extended. Their mouth has to be a little bit open when they're swimming around, because if they would have their mouth closed, that would be the equivalent of us holding our breath. So the way they get oxygen out of the water is by having water flow through the gills, and they accomplish that by swimming around with the mouth a little bit open so water can enter the front of the mouth and go out the gills, and they get oxygen. So far from, you know, constantly biting something, they are really not into that. So the funny thing was, for about 5-6 years, we would see more and more of these great white sharks, and they were huge. They were like 9-10 feet. And we told the fishermen, go like, man, we see this huge great white sharks, and they go like, no, you don't. These are the little ones. And we're like, 9-10 feet, little shark, yeah, right. They're bigger than we are. And they go like, oh, no. They get much, much bigger in the fall. Now, having been around the ocean for a while and around fishermen, you know, when they catch a fish, it's this big. And when they talk about it, it's this big. And next time, it's that big. And then before you know it, their arms aren't long enough to describe how big that fish was. So we thought, you know, it's another fish story. But they kept insisting, and so finally we said, okay, let's just go down there and see if it's true. So we went down, we anchored up just about a quarter mile offshore. And at Guadalupe, it's a volcanic island. It actually has two volcanoes, one at the north end and one at the south end. They're long extinct, but sort of the old crater is where we anchor up. So even though we're very close to shore, we're already in about 270 to 300 feet of water. So we anchored up there, and you know, we put some bait in the water with, so these lines that you see, these buoys, so underneath there's, you know, some tuna attached to it. And you see the sharks swimming around that bait. And this, in white shark terms, that's a shark frenzy. It doesn't really look like anything. They're not even going for the piece of bait. Because, you know, they smell the tuna and they love tuna, but when they look at it, they go like, that doesn't look like tuna, what the heck is it? And their approach is super cautious. Also check out this shark. See like this big white stripe across the top? It was actually completely entangled in a really thick rope that went all the way around it and dug really deep into the shark. So that one we cut the line off, and then we named him Gilbert Gottfried. Because, well, we freed him. So the marine debris is actually a really big problem for these sharks. Here, this is a different shark. Her name is Ropey. And you see, it's probably from an old lobster trap or something. And that's also completely embedded in her flesh all the way around. And eventually, if that doesn't get ripped out and cut, it will kill her, because it will just eventually cut off the blood flow or the oxygen flow, because it goes right through the gills in there. So it's not just what we purposely do to these animals by catching them, whatever, killing them. Just what we have in the ocean can actually kill these animals, even if we don't intend to. This particular shark, and what you see on this screen, is actually probably just a little bit less than life size. She's about 18 foot, and in an 18-foot shark, if you picture this, I could be standing upright, not counting the dorsal fin. So the diameter of them is roughly 6 something feet. A 20-foot shark can have an 8-foot diameter. So they're massively big animals. But this animal, particular one, her name is Lucy, and as a female, about 18 foot, you notice there's like a little pilot fish right in front of her mouth. And you see how banged up she is too. That's very, very common with the white sharks. They seem to always have wounds that heal or are scraped up. If you see a white shark that's more than like 13, 14 feet, that doesn't have any old scarring on it, it'd be very, very unusual. Most of them are scraped up, capped up, and have old scars on them. So a lot of people ask me why the shark would not be eating that little pilot fish. Now that has one major reason. One, a big shark would never go after something that small, because chasing it would actually expend more energy than they would be getting from eating it. So it would be, they would starve themselves to death chasing little fish, because they wouldn't get enough calories to sustain themselves. But also, it would be nearly impossible for this shark to eat that little fish, unless it will cut it right in half with the teeth. If it's in the mouth, the fish just waits until the mouth opens again and swims out. Because the sharks, they don't chew their food, so they can just swallow what's in their mouth, and if there's a fish in there that's just swimming, it's not gonna be affected by it. As a matter of fact, we see some fish that are a little bit bigger, like the remoras, the ones that attach themselves to bigger fish. We see them go into the gills of white sharks, and their head is inside the mouth. So when the shark is eating something, the little debris that comes off, they can eat. And it's kind of like you guys being on a cruise ship, right? So you get all the food you want, you get the transportation, and if you're a small fish in the ocean, what safer place than in the mouth of one of the biggest predators? I mean, nothing is going to attack you there. And in one of the videos I'm going to show you, you'll actually see the little tail of a remora sticking out of the gill of one of these sharks. So we do see this quite often. So I told you, they don't always swim around with the mouth wide open. So when the mouth is wide open with the teeth extended, you probably just about missed it, because it's such a small fraction of a second that the mouth is actually open, and it's only when they actually go for something. So like here, it was going for a piece of bait. These sharks have an unreal ability to blend in. I mean, you see, this is a fairly big shark, probably 13, 14 feet. It's just a few feet on the water, and you can barely see it. And then you lose it again, especially, if you don't have the filter that's on a camera, they just blend in. So their coloring from the top down is really amazing, but even the white belly from the bottom up, if you look at the sun from below the water, they totally blend in. This here is a shark that was going for a piece of bait. Now, we will call this an attack, or most people would say it was attacking the bait, but that was not an attack. The shark was checking it out for a while, smells like tuna, and then it's going to see, hey, is this actually tuna, because it doesn't look that way. And once they learn they can eat it, they just go for it. They know they don't have to kill it or whatever, so it's not an attack. Because an attack looks a lot different. This is an attack, okay? That's something, full speed, comes at something and hits it. And that's also why we know that even fatal bites by great white sharks, in very, very rare occasions, are attacks. Most of the time, it's simply a bite. You gotta realize, sharks have no parenting going on. So anything a shark knows is through DNA. they have no clue what we are because we haven't been in the water long enough for them to make heads or tails of what we are. So biting is one way to figure something out. Tomorrow I actually talk about why sharks are not as dangerous as people make them out to be, and talk about all kinds of sharks and really how hard it is to actually get close to them and what we can do if we do get around them. But anyway, back to the white sharks. If a white shark attacks someone, even if it wouldn't bite you, you would have internal injuries because that's an animal that weighs well over 2,000 pounds and hits you at 25 miles an hour. That's like a small car hitting you at 25 miles an hour. So that would definitely leave, impact injuries. And we never see those. When I say never, it's like maybe every 2 to 3 years, there is an attack by a shark where it means it. But usually even all the bites are not really, an incident where a shark is actually going for it and is trying to feed. When they jump out of the water and they get back into the water, they instantly know where everything is. When we jump into the water, it takes us a while to kind of get oriented, to even know what's up or down. But these guys, they instantly know where everything is. And this guy just missed a piece of bait. It wasn't coming at me. It wasn't trying to, kill me. This is another one. The mouth is wide open. You'd think, oh my gosh, I'm lucky to still be here because the shark was coming after me. No, this shark was already in the process of closing its mouth because it missed a piece of bait when it jumped out of the water. So a lot of times when you look at something on TV, the narrative is, look at how brave I am to be around these animals and how dangerous these animals are. When in reality, they just misrepresent what they're actually showing you. This particular shark, his name is Shredder, and he is responsible for me still diving with sharks. It was maybe the 3rd or 4th expedition down there, and it was exciting because the sharks were jumping around, they were coming at you, and they were doing all these things that I didn't see before. But after about 3 to 4 expeditions, I thought I've seen it. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be doing this. And then he swam by, and he made eye contact. So literally his eyes focused on mine and then went to the next person. And something happened. There was a connection. And now don't get me wrong, I'm not like one of these guys that goes like, oh, the sharks, they love me. They miss me when I'm not there. This is a one-sided love affair just like me and women. So they couldn't care less about me. They recognize me. We have individual animals that literally came up every single year for 25 years. And it's a highly migratory species. They're not there all year round. But every year we go back and the same animals come back and they clearly show signs that they recognize you. But like I said, what they think, I have no idea. But so when he made eye contact, I just realized that they're interested in us individually, and in turn, they became individuals for me. So before that, it was, oh, look, there's a shark doing this, there's a shark doing that. And now it's like, why is this particular animal doing what it's doing, and why is another animal doing something different? How do they relate to each other and all that? So I became fascinated with their behavior, and that's really what my expertise is their behavior. Anything I know about their migration, their biology and all that, that's what I learned from working with the ones that actually do all these studies for the last 25 years. So a lot of my close friends are marine biologists that work with the animals that I work with. Again, I'm not the marine biologist. Incidentally, the way he got his name, Shredder, was not because of his shredded dorsal fin. Our very first expedition, a lady comes up to the captain and says, a shark just bit through your anchor line. And we're thinking like, that anchor line's 2.5 inches thick. No way did it cut the anchor line. Well, we went to the bow. Our anchor line ended about 30 feet underwater, and as we were looking at it, he came back to get some more of that anchor line. So he cut our anchor line, shredded our anchor line. That's how he got his name. Unfortunately, haven't seen him since 2011. So either he changed his behavior, went to somewhere else, or even at the island, it's a 20-mile long island, and different sharks hang out at different areas. So maybe he's not coming. I hope he's not coming at the areas that we used to go to, but I fear that he's no longer alive. But anyway, so this is the shark that's responsible for me still diving with sharks. How many of you have seen the movie Jaws? A whole bunch of you, okay. You know how they say these sharks have dead black eyes? It's not true. For one, they actually have a blue iris. Except there's one shark, Bruce, named after the guy in the movie Jaws. He's got brown eyes. But all the other sharks that I'm aware of have blue eyes. And you can tell they have a little blue iris there. But their eye is far from dead. They can turn it in any direction they want, and you know it. When they swim over you, they look down at you, they look back at you, and you see how it kind of comes out of their head. So what's funny is when they swim by you and they look back at you, it's kind of like a rear view mirror in a car that's sticking out and it's looking back at you. So you definitely always know what the shark is looking at. So when they attack something or when they go for something, even with a piece of bait, sometimes they're not quite sure, is this going to fight back? So look at the eye. It looks like a zombie shark that has, a dead eye. But what they do is, because they know that whatever they're biting might be fighting back and scratch their eye, they don't have an eyelid. A lot of sharks have an eyelid. It's called an indicating membrane, but white sharks don't have that. So they turn their eye into their head to protect it. And I thought, it's not the greatest idea because, the back of the eye, if that gets scratched, heck, that's not ideal. But Chris Lowe, he's the director of the Shark Lab at the University in Long Beach, California. He did an autopsy on one of these sharks, and he said he could not cut the back of the eye with a scalpel. So it's that tough. So they have that callus type material at the back of their eye that's protecting it. So what it means for us, it's really important actually that we know this, because when we're working with these animals, specifically when we're diving with them and we put some bait in front of them, we have to realize that when they're lunging for the bait and they roll their eyes back, they're essentially blind. So we have to make sure that the follow through of where they're lunging is not getting them into a position that's gonna hurt either the shark or the people. So if you've seen, videos on TikTok or whatever on social media where a shark wants to get into a cage, no, what happens is someone is kind of leading them into that cage because they were pulling something in front of them in an irresponsible manner, getting them into a position where the shark lunges and they get stuck in a cage, in an opening. Now, when that happens, they do not have a reverse. The shark in the movie Jaws, he could be doing this, back and forth, back and forth. A real shark can't do that. Their motor is in the back. So when they get stuck somewhere, they roll their eyes back, they're blind, they freak out, and they just thrash around because they want to get away. It's not because they want to get at someone, it's because they want to get away. So that's a typical behavior for a shark. And so, like I said, we have to be responsible in how we use those baits. Now, you just saw a video where the shark took a bait, turned, and it could have easily hit the cage, right? That's true. But the emphasis on the shark had to turn. So when they turn, even when they go really fast, when they turn, they scrub all the speed. So if they, turn and they bang into something a little bit, no harm, no foul. We see this a lot, sometimes they grab something, they turn and, they get distracted, they bump into something. It's exciting for the divers and it's safe for the sharks. And actually what we did, that's a relatively old video, so we used to have cages that had square tubing. And then we realized if a shark kind of bangs into that a little bit, they get scraped up. It doesn't really hurt them because they heal pretty well. But we decided it's better to have round tubing, so if they bang into that, they don't get scratched up. So we learned a lot from when we first started diving with them to what we were doing towards the end. So when they get a piece of bait, you see them,